Okay, hello everybody. It's Alex and Alka. We're going to do the Dawnbreak Gaming VOD review from the Flex game played on 5/21/2020. Real quick comment on how these are going to be done going forward. We right now are going to do broad structural sort of comments, right? All of the comments we're going to make in this video are going to be things that we saw recurring throughout the play of the game and things that are probably going to be big overarching changes to be made to your playstyle. In the future, the videos are probably going to be a lot more specific as you guys improve. Um, Specific things, specific watching people saying take this ability instead of that one, say position this way instead of that way. But that'll come at a later date once we start to see some structural change. So a couple of points that I want to make real quick before we get into the big overarching lessons are in this game, we see, as you guys set up your 5 point, that complex goes up here, just straight up. You're going to want to be in mid lane because this means if the other team 5 points and they see you, it doesn't reveal where you're going to start. The only exception to this rule is if you want to mislead them. So if you wanted to stand down here, complex, by red instead of by blue to make them think that you're starting red when you go to start blue, or vice versa, or what have you, that's okay. But generally speaking, unless you're trying to deceive them, you're going to want to just stand in the middle because that won't give them any inclination of what you're going to do. The other point is that Jaximus, you're really going to want cleanse in this situation, right? You're playing against Morgana, that's root, that's stun, you got Jin root, you got Lissandra root, you got Lissandra slow, you got Lissandra ult, you got Darius slow. There's a lot of CC on that team, and it doesn't really matter if you exhaust one particular person. If you exhaust Wukong when he jumps on you, for example, it doesn't matter because you're still going to get comboed by Lissandra Darius. If you take cleanse, and let's say you get cut out by Lissandra ult, you can cleanse her and away from it. That's a lot less damning of an interaction than getting caught by the CC and exhausting them, because as long as they have any backup, you still die. Okay, Alka, your overarching points?
Like Alex said, you'll probably want cleanse this game. There's a lot of CC on that team. A lot of stuff that's going to get you killed. You can exhaust all you want, but there's more target. Like when you get CC'd, everyone's going to be dogpiling on you. You don't really want to be in that situation. So you want to take cleanse with Nimbus Cloak like you did. That way you get the tenacity from cleanse, and then you also get the movement speed from Nimbus Cloak. That's pretty good. Overheal, that sort of overheal triumph, presence of mind, that's sort of personal preference. One's not really so much better than the other. Cut down. Cut down is really good for this game. You've got Darius, Wukong, Lissandra. I personally would have taken cut down this game too. A lot of people just default to the one that deals more damage, the below 40% HP. Cut down's pretty good because pretty much all the important people are going to have more HP than you. However, you took Alacrity. Definitely want to take Bloodline. Bloodline is sort of bread and butter for EDC. 99% of the time, you're going to want to take Bloodline. So covering sort of my main points here. I really want to talk about correct usage of your summoner spells, taking the right sums, using the sums, taking the right runes. I touched on, runes in the summoner spell, but actually using them in combat. Around 2 minutes-ish, 2 minutes and 30, I'm pretty sure Thresh, he hits a good hook here. You go in on the Morgana. Thresh actually dies with Ignite up. And Jin gets his heal off the full heal amount. And Ignite would have cut that, in half. He would not have been as healthy. And if you exhaust as soon as you go in on the Jin, Jin's not going to kill the Thresh here. He Qs him, he 4-shots him. That's all cut by 40%. Doesn't have that damage. Another thing is actually taking the right spells. You take E level 1 and then you take Q. in most scenarios, 99.999% of the time, you're going to want to go QW, almost every time. I can't think of a scenario where you really take E first, mainly for the fact that your Q does more damage, even if you tap it without even charging it. It does more damage. It pops your blight stacks on your W passive, as well as it's active as well. So if you had Q, W here, you get that percent missing HP. You Q the Jhin, you do tons of damage, and Jhin actually doesn't get to kill your Thresh. Thresh should have used Ignite. You should have used Exhaust. And I think you guys come out with a really good level 2 here. Instead, we end up trading 2 for 2, which is not the end of the world. Makes the lane even. And then the other points I want to touch on is knowing when to trade and knowing what you should be doing at that time. For example, you walk into lane, you start hitting the minions. It's Jhin, right? You're probably going to hit level 2 before him because of his reload mechanic. You want to be on a higher health than he is because you want to be able to use your advantage to the fullest effect. Jhin deals more damage the lower health you are, so he has a little bit more of a fighting chance if you guys are on lower HP. If both teams trade to 75% HP, you guys are still winning because he can't use that extra damage on the force shot as effectively. And then I want to talk about a minion advantage that they had around 4 minutes. Alex, if you want to scroll on over to 4 minutes.
Yep, gotcha. I'm there.
Alrighty. We start to see, the lanes pushing back into you. They have a huge minion advantage. Thresh gets hit by the binding here. There's no reason for you guys to be up this far. The minions are meeting in the middle. And it's definitely going to push into you guys. You don't actually have to be standing there right now. No minions are going to die. So, just let it push out. If you guys try and trade right now, you're going to take, a ton more damage than if you would if you just let it, push out. Thresh actually walks up here for the hook. If he hit the hook, he 100% would have died. If he went on that hook, he was guaranteed dead. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They had 6 caster minions, and the caster minions would have just focused him down. He was a level down. He just hits a level up here at 445, and they would have just killed him and probably cleaned up Varus too. So knowing when to trade and how to trade is also pretty good. Thresh is a lot scarier with his hook up. If the Thresh Q level 1 is 18 seconds, right? So if he uses that and he misses, that's an 18-second cooldown. I want to trade with Thresh as much as I can. He can't do anything about it. He does nothing. He is literally a ward level 1 if he does not have Q. And then another thing I want to talk about is sort of positioning a little bit more. If you scroll on over to 8 minutes, Alex.
Okay.
We see, the lanes pushing into them. We see, we don't see Morgana or Jhin. You're pushing the lane and they're both in lane, whatever. We see there's a gank going on mid lane. We eventually see Wukong show mid. We see Darius show mid. We see both the mid laner and the jungler die. And we end up trying to go for sort of a deep ward here. If the enemy team was a little bit better, they immediately come bot and they collapse on you. Right now, we see Thresh positioning and walking towards the Varus, trying to fight. But really, Thresh just wants to be positioning for a Lantern here. Because as you can see, they're both level 6, and you guys are both level 5. So they just turn around and actually just kill you guys. Thresh should have been standing by Try, waiting to throw the Lantern to Varus, who was getting a really risky war in the jungle there. And then Varus, narrowly escapes. When you see both of your jungle and your mid lane die, and their jungler and top laner are in mid lane, you probably don't want to go for that deep vision, but if you do, you want to make sure you have the Thresh Lantern on the way out. And then a little bit later, we see around 9 minutes, if you're ready, Alex.
Yep.
We see the Morgana actually die there, and then you flash forward. We get a great double kill on here, but I don't think the Varus flash was necessary. If you actually check, you still have W available. So if you queued with the W active on the Morgana when Rek'Sai knocked her up with her tunnel. You would have done a lot more damage because it's percent missing health, and the flash would have been unnecessary, and then you can just walk down the Jhin. That's another defensive spell that you want to have in your arsenal. Plus, to top it all off, Rek'Sai was probably going to get the Morgana kill anyway, so the flash was really just unnecessary. So pretty much big points are trading and knowing what you should do when you're trading, sort of knowing what you can do in a 2v2 situation, like we saw with the minion advantage for the enemy team, and the deep ward that ended up costing Thresh to give up a kill, and then using summoners correctly. That flash was a little overzealous. We didn't need to use flash there. Level 1, if we used Ignite and we used Exhaust, probably didn't need to trade 2 for 2. Probably could have just 2'd them. And then I also want to touch on sort of the builds a little bit. By the end of the game, the build is sort of the on-hit Varus build that we all know and love. But you have Merc Treads and you have no QSS. Like I touched on with Cleanse, you sort of need that QSS to get rid of, Lissandra R, Lissandra W, Darius Slow, Morgana Q, Morgana R, Jhin W, Jhin Slow on his R if that's going to hit you. You want to get rid of those things. It's a team with a ton of CC. Merc Treads are good. However, you want to have attack speed boots because you're on hit Varus. And then you also want to have a QSS rather than a GA. I find that if I die in GA, I'm just going to get killed again. And I think, not quite for EDC, losing gracefully is another pretty important topic. I mentioned it earlier today in today's practice, knowing how to pretty much just soak as much XP and CS as you can without giving up as many kills as you can. By the end of the game, we have 16 deaths on Thresh and 10 or so deaths on Varus. We really want to limit those to, single-digit numbers. One thing that helped me play better is trying to die 4 or less times, and sort of limiting how much gold I'm actually injecting into the map. So knowing how to lose gracefully, trying to CS long range with Q, letting the minion wave push into you, CSing under tower, big takeaways from that. That's all I have for ADC and support.
Okay, so solo laners, I'm looking at you. One big thing I saw in this game is honestly one of the biggest weights that is on any solo laner, which is, do you take TP? Do you not take TP? If you take TP, how do you use it? TP is almost without a doubt the most complicated summoner spell to use, right? You can take it, and if you don't use it enough, it wasn't worth it. If you take it and use it, but in the wrong ways, it wasn't worth it, right? If you take Ignite and you never kill somebody with Ignite, you're not any better off for having taken it, but it'll give you some utility in fights. If you take TP and you use TP incorrectly, that can throw away a lead. That can put you behind. TP is a very hard spell to use, right? So I'm gonna have to touch on I'm gonna touch on this topic a little bit in this VOD review, but I think one VOD review that we'll put out a little bit later is probably just going to be about that topic. So, Invalence, you're the person I'm looking at here because you're the only person with TP in this game. So I'm gonna expand the topic a little bit to include split pushing because you and Timo both did a little bit of that. But in general, I want to knock a couple things right off the bat. TPing the lane is generally not a good idea. If you die and you want to TP back so a huge wave doesn't crash into your turret and you lose a level in gold, that's okay. But generally speaking, you don't want to be TPing to lane past about 10 minutes at the latest, right? If you can never TP to lane because you get good backs, that's ideal. But if you have to use TP once in the early game to get back to lane, that's okay. So generally speaking, don't use TP to get back to lane unless you're very early on. The other thing I want to talk about is in the later stages of the game, a couple of times, right around 21-20, okay, we see Silas up in top lane, Silas is split pushing, Silas is TP, your team is on Dragon, right? This is a very, very risky uh, position to be in if you're here for any length of time, right? All these people are dead, they're going to come back, and they all can collapse on you. You don't have any supporting vision in their jungle, except for this ward way back here. So you need to be really, really careful in this situation, right? And so it plays out for a little bit, and you crash the wave, and your team here does something really, really good that you want to pay attention to. Is your team files into mid lane and gets mid pressure here, okay? This is what's called wave equality. A split pusher who's extremely pushed up when other lanes aren't pushed up is super easy to collapse on because they have no other lane being pressured. But as soon as you get this mid lane pressure, now it's not a choice of do I kill Silas or not kill Silas? Now it's a choice of do I try to meet Silas's pressure or do I try and meet mid lane pressure? Any split pusher always wants that situation. The only situation where you ever take these super lopsided pushes is if something big has happened and you're trying to make a trade. Otherwise, this is not a sustainable position to be in, right? So at this point in time, your team pressure's mid, people are coming off cooldown, they have to make a choice. That's good. Just remember that. The other thing is uh, splitting on a comp where some people have TP and some people don't have TP, right? So 2024, okay? 2024, Dragon is coming up. The person who has TP, again being Silas in this case, is topside. Perfect, right? If you have TP, you have two options. You either stay on the close side, in which case that's not the best option, or you go to the far side. If you have TP, go to the far side. That's your best option. If you don't have TP and you want to impact a fight, that's the asterisk there. If you don't have TP, you want to impact a fight, like Teemo, for instance, you want to be on this side of the map because it means you can push and then rotate and get a flank. Okay. You now, if you're a top laner without TP that doesn't, or anybody really with TP that doesn't want to influence a fight, you're going to want to be on the opposite side of the map, right? So the decision you have to make between no TP, where you want to be, is do I want to impact a fight or do I want to force a trade? Force a trade, go away. Uh, Impact a fight, stay close. Okay. There were a couple of fights in this game where you use your TP exceedingly sparingly. There were periods of time where I just watched it, the clock go around. This fight was one of them. 2450. This huge fight breaks out. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 people on 1, 2, at least 3 people. This would be a good TP, right? You have a ward here, you have a shroom, you have a ward here, you have a shroom here. You've got a couple of options to get to this fight. Okay, shut up, Jim. You've got a couple of options. Instead, you hold it, and I believe, yeah, you end up getting this tower, I believe. That's okay, but remember, if you use the TP, you could get a lot off of it, and as we'll see later on, you use the TP, you get a huge play, right? What I want to encourage you to do is throw the Hail Marys on the TP, learn how to use it, and then we can be more specific about whether or not you should in every specific situation. Right now, I just want you to develop the habit. Okay. So, one thing I heard you guys talking about in the later stages of this game is what your comp's goal is. Some of you were saying that you wanted to take 5v5s, some of you were saying that you wanted to do a 1-3-1. In my opinion, your comp is exceedingly good as a 1-3-1 comp. You have Teemo, who at this point in the game is very, very strong. Darius can't even hope to match Teemo. And you have Silas, who inside of the 1v1 is also extremely strong. So if you can 1-3-1 these guys, they're super happy. They can match whoever shows up. And honestly, that's ideal for you guys. Now, uh, what you guys really don't want to do is you don't want to take even team fights. The reason I say your team is an exceedingly good 1-3-1 comp is because you have two people who can split push extremely well, Silas and Timo, and you have a three-man unit that's exceedingly good at disengaging, right? Varus has a ranged root, Thresh has Flay and the box, and Rek'Sai has knockup. If they try and engage onto you, like with say Lissandra E or Wukong WR combo, you have a lot of means to get away from that fight while your people in the side lane go nuts. So in this game, that was your win condition. Or there's one other way your comp functions, which is as a pick comp, right? You have a lot of options in this way. You have Thresh Hook, you have Varsar, you have Silas Chains, you have Rek'Sai Tunnel into Knockup. You have a lot of pick potential. If you wanted to go for a pick, make a fight 4v5, and then take the after fight, that would also have worked okay. Um, Once we start getting in the mid game, the gold gets pretty close, the objectives get pretty close. At that point, it definitely becomes a 1-3-1 game. But recognizing win cons and the way you need to play your comp and the way that changes depending on how the game goes, these are all things that come with experience. But the big point, this is the really, really big point. This is the only thing you take away from this VOD review. I'll take it. Fight around your vision. Now, I have a bunch of examples of this. I didn't want to go through and point every single one out, but this is a huge deal. So let's go back to right around here. Okay? Okay. Now remember, I'm not being me when I do this. Okay, so Silas, it's on 2x speed again. You take this chain back onto her. I don't think that was a good idea, straight up. I don't even think you win this in a 1 versus 1 scenario. But what ends up happening is Wukong shows up, and he picks up the kill. You took the fight. You don't have vision here, 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 or here, here. You have no idea he's coming. Even if this situation was a 1 versus 1, it wouldn't have been a good idea, but it becomes a worse idea when you consider you have no idea where this guy is. Next situation. Let's see. 8:06. Okay. You guys were also going to comment on this play just as micro real quick. Okay. Diving onto Lissandra here doesn't have R at this point in time. Perfectly fine decision, right? You bait her into walking forward. You turn around. You get the knockup. This is fine, right? No issue here. We might have wanted to been on the same page more because Silas walked back to the wave to farm, but that's okay. That's communication. The problem here is twofold. One, you do not have supporting vision for this, right? You only have one ward here. This is all you see, which means Darius gets to walk in for free, and Wukong gets to walk into this play for free. So, the other thing is, Rek'Sai takes a tower shot. Silas hits chains. Silas takes a tower shot. Okay? Silas takes a second tower shot, dies. You ult, you don't drop aggro of the tower. Okay, so Silas dies to the tower. You ult in, kill Lissandra, but now there's no one to tank for you. So now you tank tower shot, and you die. This is probably one of the worst outcomes. The only way it really could have been worse was as if Wukong or Darius got an assist gold. The way this should have been done is you would have wanted to have, one, more vision. Two, you would have wanted Rek'Sai to start out tanking, don't drop the aggro, then use your R to drop aggro, kill Lissandra, and you both should probably get away in that situation if you go into bot side jungle. Here, you both end up dying, you both took a lot of unnecessary tower damage, but I don't think the play itself was wrong. Next point is, let's see, a little bit later. Okay, this one's in top lane, so everybody's getting flamed today. It's okay. So, Teemo takes the 1v1 with Darius. You absolutely destroy him because he is 0-1 and doesn't want to play this game anymore. Great job. Right here is where this stops being good for you, right? If you have a ward down here, you could kill him and immediately start kiting away, right? But the fact of the matter is, you don't have the ward, you don't have a shroom, so Wukong walks into the lane, catches you by surprise, and Wukong is a fair and balanced champion, so he kind of just takes you through the ringer here, and you die. Killing Darius, completely fine. But not knowing that you needed to try and get out as soon as possible really made this a 1-for-1 instead of a 1-for-0. So, again, playing around vision is probably one of the most important things. Okay, and we're going to go down. Now, where does this one happen? It's looking like the mid lane. Yep, okay. This fight, perfectly fine. Again, perfectly fine. You take the 1v1, okay, you go blow for blow with her, you're smacking her around, I love it. This is great. Okay, you get out, and I'm watching you here, making me nervous. I'm thinking, okay, he's good, looks like he's gonna get out. Okay, Rek'Sai tries to put pressure onto Lissandra, this is also good, right? He gets her flash, that's great. The problem is, Wukong showed up, you didn't expect him to be there, and he was able to chase you down and kill you. Big issue again is that Wukong got to walk in for free through this bush, no ward, right? Okay, you guys unironically bought a lot of wards, but we just need to have them on the map, okay? Because we have 1, 2, 3 wards, which is, okay, 4, sorry, 5. You guys have wards on the map, but especially in the solo lanes, it seems like there's a bit of an issue with playing around vision. So, in review, the main points are, remember, try to use TP, get into a habit, and then we'll start to refine on when or when not is the best usage. And don't worry, we're going to go back to that at the very end. And remember to fight around vision. If you don't have vision, pretend the jungler's in that bush waiting for you to make a move. Because if you always expect the 2v1, you'll never be caught off guard. Okay. And so, to give a little back to the solo laners, because I feel like I was bullying them in this VOD review. Let's go to display. Okay. Let's see. Are you here already? No, you're not. Okay. This was the perfect TP. Beautiful. Okay. Your team's in a fight. So what do? You look up. You see them fighting. Boom. TP. Okay. Boom. Insane TP. You outplay this guy. Okay. You outplay that girl. You outplay this guy. You outplay this guy. You outplay everybody in the game. Okay. 1 TP. Literally, you guys blow the game open with this fight. You're still down in gold at the time this happens. You're down in gold. You're down in drags. They got soul a little bit earlier in this game. But that TP wins the fight, and that fight wins the game. Okay? That is the value of a good TP. Does that happen every time? No. But if that happens more often than it doesn't happen, in terms of it happens once every so often, you will win more games, right? So, again, in review, we're going to talk more about TP and how to split push later on, but remember where you want to be with or without TP, how you want to fight around vision, and what were your points, Alka? Okay, I guess you went AFK. And if you watch all of this and you get all these things on point, then you guys will see a lot of growth, right?
I'm sorry, my mic was muted. I was watching the epic TP play.
Yeah, insane TP.
It was very nice.
So, again, before 12 minutes, we'd given up almost over 1,000 gold because we had taken fights without warding. That would be a huge change to our gameplay, and it's one of the big overarching things that we want to work on. So, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I want to touch on a little bit on the jungle a little bit more. We talked a lot about the solo lanes, the ADC support. We didn't really touch too much on jungle. For jungle, I really want to focus on pathing, time usage, and sort of putting a little bit more thought into what we're building. rather than just building whatever Professor is telling us to build, taking whatever Professor is telling us to take what getting our builds from the MOBA Fire, like random challenger player or whatever. I want us to put a little bit more thought into our builds and understand why we're building what we're building. But let's start with pathing and time usage. Starting off in the beginning of the game, I think we talked briefly about switching out the ward, getting a ward down on their red side jungle or blue side jungle, and then backing, switching to sweeper. Effective use of time, helps you get in ganks if they're warding. But there's not too much to talk about, sort of in the early part of pathing. Work on kiting your camps a little bit more. It can really make the difference. It can make 100 HP difference, and in the beginning of the game, that's huge. Pathing's pretty alright. There was a gank at 6 minutes top lane. Alex, if you want to look at that for me.
Okay. I'm there.
All right. So in this case, you get the gank off on the Darius, you push him off. You end up staying in the bush and getting the kill on the Darius. It's great. There's a couple of things you can do at this point, which save a lot of time, and is really just good, in general. The first thing you should do is you're all the way top lane. You just cleared, Wolves, Blue, and Gromp. You have about 600 gold. That is enough for, a longsword. You're all the way top lane. It's probably quicker for you to, back here because you have tunneled. You get 15%, or sorry, not 15%, 15 base movement speed when you're buried. So literally just walk out of vision, back, head bot side. Your bot side's coming up. You have an extra an extra longsword. You clear quicker then. You do more damage when a scuffle happens. And then just backing because you're all the way in top lane saves you time getting to your red side jungle. So that's the first thing I would do is instead of walking all the way bot lane, you actually back here at 6 minutes instead of walking unburied all the way to your Krugs. That's just an effective use of time. Not only are you saving time in terms of distance traveling, you're also picking up a longsword, which saves you time on clearing. Early game jungle is all about time, time, time. You got to get things done, and you got to be places. Right now, it's sort of a really dragon-heavy meta, where getting an extra dragon uncontested early is, can be game-changing. Especially with how good Dragon Soul is in this game and how underwhelming Rift Herald is. So backing when you're on the opposite side of the map, and then walking to your newly spawned camps on the bot side. You actually clear your bot side camps here, and then you spend a lot of time wasting on the Lissandra gank. I understand wanting to kill the Lissandra, but the Lissandra actually gives you the runaround level 4 and level 6 here. With Lissandra Claw, wasting your time, you try and gank her, but she just claws away, W's you, and teleports to her claw. It's really hard to gank Lissandra, especially when she hits level 4. If you're going to gank Lissandra, try and do it level 2. When she probably has just Q and W, it's a lot easier. However, if Lissandra hits level 3 or level 4, just don't gank Lissandra. She has a lot of tools to waste your time. And you spend a lot of time trying to kill Lissandra, your top lane or your top side jungle is up from exactly 7:01 to 11:04. You actually start doing your wolves, so a total of like about 4 minutes, which is a huge loss in gold. You want to try and cycle your camps as quickly as you can while weaving in ganks, so you get the most gold and XP that you can. If you get more XP than the enemy jungler, and you are 1 or 2 levels up on him by the time an objective spawns, and you can contest it, that's great. You can outsmite him. It's not a 50-50. Especially with Rek'Sai, where you also have your E as true damage. Most of the time you can actually steal that objective from them. So uh, you actually die in the middle of your top side jungle being up because you also try and get the Lissandra again. She wastes your time. She ends up going under tower. I believe Alex touched briefly on the 2-for-1 for the Lissandra not being great. And pretty much just a lot of time wasted by the Lissandra. Later in the game, you're picking up the Warrior enchantment, which is fine. You pick up Tabbies, which is excellent. I would have gone Merc Treads this game for reasons that the ADC and support would pick up Merc Treads, all of the stuns and CC. Tabbies are fine for you, but Merc Treads definitely this game. Your second item ended up being Black Cleaver. So you have Warrior, Black Cleaver, Tabbies. You are insanely squishy for a Rek'Sai. Typically, especially in teams where you lack that frontline tank, on this team you have Teemo top and Thresh support. Teemo's not going to build tank. Thresh is going to be kind of tanky, but he's building support items, so he's not incredibly tanky. You're going to be the last sort of frontline for your team, as well as going into dive. You have Silas going into dive with you, so you don't really want to be doing a lot of the damage. You want to be, absorbing as much as you can. So probably in this case, I would have gone Deadman's second, and then started getting tank items, Spirit Visage after Deadman's, even a Gargoyle Stone Plate would be excellent, especially considering you're diving in, and sort of just going for the more tanky build. This game is Rek'Sai because you lack that true frontline, for your ADC. If it comes, for example, since you guys have a great 1-3-1 comp, you probably don't want to be, building pure damage. So if you do get caught, and if you do take any spells for your ADC or support or mid lane or whoever's, in the 3 part of it, you can get out as well because you actually have that HP. So pretty much to reiterate, I want us to think about what we're building and why for jungle, pathing, and then time usage as well. Think about, can this person waste my time? What do we gain by this? Are my camps going to stay alive for a long period of time? Having 3 camps be alive for 4 minutes, not ideal. The camps can respawn several times in that time frame, and you really want to be cycling your camps as much as possible. So pathing and time usage and builds are big for the jungler here.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, I believe that'll bring us to the end of the first VOD review. So we gave you hopefully a lot to think about in this game, and really, guys, this first VOD review and the first couple really are all about just building habits, building up thought processes. We just want you to think more about things you're doing without thinking, right? Why am I taking this summoner spell? How am I going to use this summoner spell? What am I building? Why am I building it? All of these things make the difference, and all of these things over any extended period of time will make the difference, especially so in competitive pay. So, thank you all for watching. Hopefully, you got something out of it, and we'll see you again for this kind of thing next week.